A big 2 points up for grabs tonight in Toronto with the Florida Panthers coming to town. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Maple Leafs are in action tonight, taking on the Florida Panthers. So you want to place a $5 wager on something you feel good about, that bet hits. You win yourself $5. Dave, big game tonight. Massive game for the Maple Leafs with the Panthers coming to town.
Yeah, for many reasons. One, obviously, the place in the standing, the Atlantic Division race is huge, but also just another challenge for this group against another, formidable team, right? They've gone through a bit of a gauntlet with, Colorado, Vegas. Now you got Florida. Like it's been a tough stretch here, but it's one that really will test this group.
And they haven't come out victorious against those top tier teams. And I think that's kind of been a bit of a problem for the Maple Leafs of late. They haven't played well. They really have not played good hockey since coming back for the Four Nations tournament. They had that stretch right before out on the road. They did that Canadian Western road trip, played well in Calgary. Went into Seattle and won a game, went into Edmonton without Matthews and won a game. And all of a sudden now you're taking a look and it's been a tough stretch here. And I think one key, significant loss has really been a big you can attribute to why the Leafs have kind of struggled as of late. And that's the loss of Chris Tanev, who's been out now for 6 games. And Dave, since then, the team 3-2-1, which is an okay record. But do you know where they rank in terms of expected goals, goal differential that is, at 5-on-5 since that injury?
I'm probably going to put it in the bottom 5 of the league.
Yeah, that'd be 31st in the NHL in expected goal differential. Yeah, 37% expected goal differential for the Maple Leafs at 5-on-5. It's been horrendous. They've been outscored 19-14 at 5-on-5 in that stretch. So not only expected goals, but the actual goals also not working out well. So look, it's a big test against Florida tonight. Obviously, we know the situation. Toronto and Florida currently just separated by 2 points for the top of the division at the Atlantic in the Atlantic Division. And Florida's coming off a loss, right? They lost to Boston. The Bruins doing God's work for the Buds right now. Beat the Florida Panthers over the weekend. They beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. So they're doing their work for the Buds. But Toronto's They got to do some work themselves and pick up a full 2 points. Can't have a 3-point night tonight.
No, that's the important one there. You hit it there. It's like you cannot let this be a game where you allow Florida to get a point. And I look at what happened against Utah. Yeah, you got the 2 points, but it felt like, well, at least you get the 1 point. I was, some people would be saying, but it's like, no, like you got to start thinking 2 points. You also want to think about those regulation wins. You don't want to be in a position where, a potential tiebreaker because you've allowed games to go to overtime, right? And yeah, they got to start playing 5-on-5 has got to be, like, if anyone were saying to me, where do the Leafs need to improve? It's pretty blatant obvious. Like, it's not like it's a secret where the struggles have been. It just sometimes it doesn't get magnified enough because, last game they had 2 power play goals that helped kind of alleviate some of that pressure to not being able to score at 5-on-5. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of the people who are looking at the numbers, because Toronto certainly has a lot of people doing that, are pointing to that. It's just a matter of the team figuring out a way to get it done.
Yeah, let me just go through really quickly some of the underlying numbers in their last 7 games, dating back to when Chris Tanev was out for injury. They're giving up, in terms of goals against per 60, the third most goals per 60 at 5-on-5 in the entire National Hockey League. Expected goals for, they're averaging the least amount of goals for. That's offense. The fact that they're generating the least amount of offense, that's quality and quantity of chances per game, is somewhat of a conundrum to me. And I think a lot of people don't realize how good Chris Tanev is at the breakout and how well he's able to get the puck in the hands of some of the best players in the league, like an Austin Matthews, a Mitch Marner, or William Nylander, or John Tavares. It's way different when it's a guy like Phil Myers trying to, that stretch pass, that one touch to get it out of the zone. Tanev's been able to do that. And for a guy who, typically starts in the defensive end, kills plays, gets the puck, moves it forward, they haven't been able to do that. And it's a reason why I believe that they've been playing in their own end a whole heck of a lot, which is why when you look at their expected goals against, they're 30th in the NHL over that stretch. 3.13 expected goals against over that stretch. So they're giving up a high amount of scoring chances per 60. They're giving up 30 scoring chances per 60, which is, I think, sixth worst mark in the NHL. 12.3 high danger chances, which is also the sixth worst in the NHL. So defensively, they've been quite horrendous, to be quite honest with you, over the course of this 6 or 7 game stretch that Chris Tanev's been out. And they've got to just find a way to buckle down and buck that trend tonight, because the Florida Panthers are one of the best teams when it comes to generating offense. They just are. They've got so much scoring power and threats all throughout the lineup. They know how to go to the dirty areas and produce high quality chances. And Toronto's got to be prepared to really battle tonight to limit that. And they got to try and get some of their own, because it's hard to beat a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky. He's been unbelievable of late. He's got like 2 shutouts in the last, handful of games. As a team, they got a .968 save percentage over the last 5 games. Florida, man, they're rolling. And they added, Matt Tkachuk, or they added Brad Marchand. They added Seth Jones. This is going to be such a tough team to beat, which is why you want to try and pick up the 2 points tonight. They've got 2 more meetings against them between now and the rest of the regular season. It was going to be big if they want to finish atop of Florida and try and get, home ice advantage and claim first seed in that Atlantic division. Why don't we take a quick break, Dave? We'll come back. We'll break down what the Panthers are going to look like tonight. And there's one change to the Maple Leafs lineup. We talked about it yesterday. Let's mix up the top 6 a little bit. There was a swap. We'll talk about that next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates fast. If you look to need somebody to hire, almost like yesterday, you don't want to have a setback, because every day without the right person really is a setback. That's exactly why Indeed sponsored jobs comes in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Today's show is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So just stop managing your money and start building wealth. It's just great to have all of it done in an app. You don't have to go and look through so many different apps, checking your bank, your investments, especially if you have multiple different credit cards. It's all can be done easily in one app. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can even track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you on a Leafs game day. Toronto back home taking on the Florida Panthers. It's a big bout between the two top teams in the Atlantic Division, separated by just 2 points. So Toronto wins tonight, and they could end up at the top of the top of the Atlantic Division with a victory. But it's going to be tough. Like the Florida Panthers, they play Toronto hard all the time. They've won 7 of the last 10 meetings between these two teams. And last outing, November 27th, the only time they've played this year, Florida won that game 5-1. So Florida completely controlled that one from start to finish pretty well. And so Toronto, they got to figure it out. And they said after their loss against Vegas that was a wake-up call, Dave. The way they played against Utah didn't look like it. Is tonight going to be the night that they wake up from the little stupor that they've been in? I sure hope so.
It's almost like we always hear like people say, the teams that are like, that they should beat, they don't beat. I mean, Utah has been in that category before, but the Panthers have been a very tough matchup for this Leafs team. Not just the playoffs, like we're talking regular season too. It's not, I don't say it's not the team, it's the style, right? When a team pushes the tempo, pushes the pace, the Leafs have really struggled to match it in a lot of ways. They got to find a way to really match whatever the Panthers are going to throw at them. Are they going to try to be physical? Most likely. That's the Panthers game. They're a physical bunch. Goaltending, we know that they're going to have really good goaltending. So this is I think this is going to be a big test on 2 things for the Leafs: goaltending, and I mean we say it all the time, and it's always true with the team. Can the Stars really pick up the slack? Because if you're looking at reasons why things haven't been going so well for this team, you can point to the way that it's gone for the star players on this team.
100%. Now, we'll say typically the Leafs have played well against Florida, or at least the Stars have performed well against Florida throughout their careers. Mitch Marner has 36 points in 27 games against Florida. Matthews, 25 points in 26 games. Got 15 goals in 26 games. And since coming to the Maple Leafs, Tavares, 14 goals in 19 games against the Florida Panthers. These are all regular season statistics, not including the playoff series that they had a couple years ago. But, so the Stars have been able to perform and score on Bobrovsky and have some success against this team, but they haven't been doing it lately. Not against the Panthers, but they haven't been doing it in general. I think Willie's got like 2 goals his last 10 games. Like, that's got to change, right? Willie's got to start firing the puck into the net. Scored on the power play the other night. That's great. Maybe that's a sign of things to come, and he can get going again. Need Matthews to start scoring on a more regular basis. Marner's played well. Marner's been putting up points. He's been doing his thing, and I expect for him to go out and kind of lead the charge again. I think those two you want to start seeing fill the net a little more, Matthews and William Nylander. Hopefully they can get it done. Why don't we take a look at what the Leafs lineup is going to look like tonight, because there's a slight tweak in the middle 6 here. We talked about how we didn't quite like Pontus Holmberg sitting in the top 6 on the second line. Well, he no longer is on the second line. He's been put back down onto the 4th line, and Pontus Calle Yarncroc is now on the second line alongside John Tavares and William Nylander. Everything else pretty much staying the same. They're sticking with McMahon, with Lawton and Domi. And we talked about ad nauseum yesterday. I don't know why the Leafs are so hell-bent on trying to make that work. McMahon, Domi, and Lawton. But I think it's the other one might be the Leaf one, or the updated one. But yeah, McMahon, Domi, and Lawton still going to go at it for another game there, Dave. I don't know why they want to really, really push to try and make that happen, but I'm just not a believer in that as a third line.
I think you've talked me into at least the Domi part of it. Like, I think we're at a point right now, especially with this team not being able to find offense at 5-5. You talk about Willie, you talk about even especially Willie, like get a guy like Max up there that's going to help. He's a pass first guy, right? So you might as well get him to hopefully maybe try to get Willie going a little bit more by setting him up for some plays because, I just think that Yarncroft's got that defensive ability. I understand why he's up there for that reason, but Domi's the passer. He's the guy that's going to help maybe free up a few more plays. Yarncroft's not a guy that's going to set up goals. He's never been that guy throughout his career.
No, he's not. And he might be a guy to, who can get in on the forecheck and go and hunt for pucks and whatever. I guess that's what they're going to try and use him for. But again, if you want to use Lawton as a shutdown line, it's an oxymoron to have him teamed up with Max Domi to me. I don't know why. They're really, really trying hard to get Domi and Lawton as like a pair that they want to try together. But for me, I don't think it's going to fit. I don't think it's going to work. I think eventually we see Yarncroft and Domi get flipped and, Domi goes up with Tavares and Nylander, and that becomes more of an offensive zone. They get those easier minutes, and then all of a sudden McMahon, Lawton, and Yarncroft are, starting some defensive zone starts, and that's how I think things should go. But I don't have the lineup card, but that's what it's looking like tonight. So that one little tweak for the Maple Leafs defensively, we're going to see the same as we saw the other night. And I imagine it's going to be Anthony Stolarz in goal. And hey, Stolarz, former Florida Panthers, so he gets an opportunity to play his former squad tonight.
I think he played that first game against Florida earlier in the
Panthers. Yeah, he did. Yes, gave up 4 goals on 23 shots.
It wasn't. I remember that game wasn't exactly a masterclass by the Leafs by any stretch. It was the second half of back-to-back against. I think they played Tampa the night before. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is like a big. Like we didn't really discuss too much. I was going to bring it up yesterday, but I didn't want it to become a conversation about the goaltending. But like, if you're Anthony Stolarz, this game is massive for him in more ways than one. Not just him playing against his former team. He's coming off, not a great night against Colorado, where, yeah, he did well, but the start of that game wasn't really great, and so he's got to bounce back, and he's got to show this team what a starter's able to do, right? That 1A guy, right? A big game like this, he's getting that opportunity. He's got to show what he can do in this situation. So I think, if I'm the Leafs, yeah, there's a reason why they put him in this game. They want to see him bounce back, but they also want to see, can he handle that pressure of a game of this magnitude?
Oh, and against this opponent who they could face down the road. And I think too, like Joseph Woll, he's given up 11 goals his last 3 games, right? So, they're waiting for one of these guys to grab that net. And Stolarz has an opportunity here down the stretch. If he can get a win tonight, I think he goes and they roll with him again Saturday against Ottawa and then roll with him again. I think we're getting to a point where you got to figure out, all right, who can we rely on a nightly basis so that when we get to mid-April, when we get to the playoffs, this is a guy who can play game 1, game 2, game 3, etc., hopefully all the way to a Stanley Cup, right? So now's the time where you got to figure it out. Which one of these 2 goalies wants to grab the net? And, 3 subpar performances in a row there by Joseph Woll. Stolarz coming off of a bad performance against Colorado. So it's time for him to step up and, win a game for Toronto and win a game that they're not supposed to. They're not favored to win in this one. So that would be, go steal one, essentially. Go steal a game would be great for Stolarz. All right, why don't we take another break? We'll come back and we'll dive into what the Florida Panthers will be throwing out there on the ice tonight. So that's coming up next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's going to be cutting the nets down. I've got my eye on a couple underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With the tournament happening almost every single day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com, get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast from. And you can also find us up on YouTube. If you're enjoying the content and you're a daily listener and an everydayer and you have not yet subscribed to the podcast, there's quite a lot. Quite a few of you guys. We ask that you please do. That'd be greatly appreciated. And as a thanks, we are giving away a Maple Leafs jersey once we get to 10,000 subscribers. So we're on our road to 10K. So we'll be glad to do that once we get there. So be a friend, tell a friend about the Locked On Leafs podcast. Toronto in action tonight against the Florida Panthers, and it's a big 2 points that is available tonight. Toronto can pull even with Florida with a victory tonight and also have a game in hand if they can get it done. Let's take a look at what the Panthers will be throwing out there. We'll take a look at the lineup here for Florida tonight. Missing a couple key members, obviously. Matt Tkachuk out with that injury. Aaron Ekblad out with a suspension, which we'll talk about in just a second. And obviously Brad Marchand still not healthy. So they're missing three pretty solid members of what would be their regular lineup. But they're still boasting a pretty solid bunch here. Carter Verhaeghe, Sasha Barkov, and Sam Reinhart. Sammy Samiskevich. You've got Bennett out there along with Evan Rodriguez, Luosterainen, Anton Lundell, and Boquist, and then Greer, Sturm, who they brought in from the deadline, and Tommy Nosek as your forward group. Defensively, Forsling and Seth Jones, Mikula and Kulikov, Schmidt and Bolinskis, and then goaltending-wise, I assume it'll be Sergei Bobrovsky in a game of this magnitude. Now, when you look at the forward group, Dave, it doesn't look like there are a bunch of killers out there because they're missing Marchand, they're missing Tkachuk, they're missing Ekblad, but man, it's just a deep team, and next man up mentality is really, really, what runs through the veins of this locker room. Like Evan Rodriguez usually pops in and has a big game, or you'll see Anton Lundell pop up for a big goal, or E2 Luosterainen, Verhaeghe always pops up, or they'll get a goal from the back end. It just seems like no matter who's in or out of this Florida lineup, it's next man up mentality. And regardless of who looks like the stronger team on paper, and I'd argue it's Toronto at this point, Florida don't give up, and it's still they're going to play very, very hard.
Yeah, they're going to try to grind this out. Now, the last game, obviously, when we brought up with Boston, like they got off to a lead, and then it was kind of an uncharacteristic loss for them to allow 3 in a row. But what they've really done ever since they've come back from 4 Nations is really clamp things down defensively.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about a Leafs team that's really struggled to put pucks in the net, this ain't the type of opponent that you're going to see a sort of bounce back effort against. They're going, not only do they have Bobrovsky in net, he's going to, do his best to really frustrate the Leafs, but they sacrifice the offense for the defense, and they'll get the timely goals when needed. And again, you look at the blue line, especially, and we talked about this so many times with this team. Oh, this isn't a very talented blue line. Yeah, but they are a pain in the ass to play against. Like Mikula,
big dude, tough to move,
massive dude. Kulikov, not the best guy, but he's
a vet. He knows.
For his time in Winnipeg, he knows what to get. And even Schmidt too. Like, these are all big guys. And this is why the Leafs had always prioritized getting bigger themselves, is to add a bit of that height. But they can try to at least punch up their weight class a little bit here. But yeah, this is one of those matchups where the Leafs are going to have to really be bogged in on not making mistakes as much. Don't give Florida any freebies. Make them really work for what they anything offensively, because it's gonna be the same thing for the Leafs offensively against this Panthers team.
Totally. And you talk about since coming back from the Four Nations, the fact that they've clamped down defensively. Absolutely. You look at their numbers at 5-on-5, although Toronto's at the bottom end, a lot of these defensive metrics since February 25th. Florida's at the top end of a lot of these metrics. Per 60 minutes, they're only giving up 21.3 shots per 60. 21.3. Toronto's giving up 27.8. So, like, you're giving up 6.5 more shots per game per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 hockey than you are the other opponent. You're taking a look at goals against average, 1.1 goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. The Florida Panthers just aren't allowing you to generate a whole lot of chances, and they're not allowing you to score at all. Scoring chances per 60, they're second in the NHL, just 21 scoring chances per 60, where the Maple Leafs giving up 30 scoring chances per 60 minutes. So, need I go on, Dave? Need I go on? How about the high danger chances against? First in the NHL, giving up just 8.3 high danger chances per 60. Where are the Maple Leafs since that stretch? Sixth, giving up 12.3 per 60. Like, it's just been night and day. And, well, one team, they've been 500 over that stretch. The other team, Florida, 6-1. Go figure. Play defense. You don't let a whole lot into the goaltender's kitchen. You're going to win a lot of games. And Toronto, it's going to be a tough task for them tonight, but they're going to have to work for every goal that they get. I'm looking at a guy like Matthew Nyes. I'm looking at a guy like Bobby McMahon. Like, go ahead. Look at a guy like Scott Lawton. It's time for you to make your mark. First couple games haven't gone well for you. But I think a game like tonight, these are the opponents you brought a Scott Lawton in for, is it not? To charge to the net when you get an opportunity, to defend well, to win faceoffs so that you can win possession for your team. These are the games where players like that have to thrive. Those playoff, type of opponents. That's exactly what Florida is. That's kind of a guy who I'm looking at tonight, and I think there should be a focus on. I think Scott Lawton. I'm curious to see what he looks like against this Florida team.
That's exactly it, right? I want to see Brandon Carlo too. These were the games these guys were brought into play. They got to show that they got to be able to handle these moments. And so, and this is why, like, maybe they're going to give them again one more game to really see if they can get that bogged down. Can they really figure out what kind of has been ailing them at 5-on-5? But at the same time, if I'm Craig Brewery, I'm not having a long leash on this. A tight leash. If things aren't going, get Bobby McMahon, get Max Domi, get somebody else that's going to help your top guy score. Because we always know, you want to be able to rely on all four lines to provide some offense. But if your top guys are being neutralized, that just adds so much extra pressure for a third line to come in offensively. Why? Don't put that extra pressure on the third line. Like, the third line should be worried about doing, forechecking, doing those little things that will eventually lead to offense, not being asked to being a full-time generator of offense, right? And that's why that top six, when we talk about how good these players are, it's because they're supposed to take that pressure off of the bottom six.
Yeah, and in terms of goals since returning from the Four Nations faceoff, Matthews, talk about numbers at 5-on-5. He's got one goal at 5-on-5 over that stretch of games, and that's one goal at 5-on-5 over the course. That's a longer stretch of games, because remember, he went on a good heater. I can actually let me pull that up and see exactly how many games he's gone with just one even strength goal. But that's another guy who you got to look at and say, dude, we got to get going here. You scored 69 goals last year. Why this guy's having such a rough go this season? Like, a lot of posts, and there's been it's been fairly unlucky. I think we can all say that it hasn't been an easy season for him. But yeah, look at even strength goals or goals at 5-on-5. It's got 1, 2. Actually, that was an empty netter. The one against Carolina was an empty netter, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so that doesn't even count. He's got one even strength goal. One even strength last 15 games. Austin Matthews. You're not going to win a lot. That's only 3 goals in general, by the way, in his last 15. So it's not even like he's scoring on the power play at 4, he only has 3 goals his last 15 games. Only one of them has been at 5-on-5. You wonder why they're not winning games, Dave. You wonder why.
And we all know that since he's come into the league, the top player at 5-on-5 in scoring since entering the league. Since he's entered the league, right?
Yeah.
Like even at a higher rate than what Alex Ovechkin has put up. Like that's what we've come to expect from Auston Matthews. And the fact that it's not there, it really shows the drop off, because all the other guys have to figure out a way to, generate their offense. And so again, this is why I wonder if at some point, if these guys aren't going, do we see Craig Berube make a change in order to get these guys going a bit more?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a good point. But we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out tonight. Again, it's a big one. 2 points on the line, a chance for Toronto to pull even, and they'll actually have a better points percentage than the Florida Panthers. So a win should put them in first place with a game in hand against Florida, with 2 more games to play against the Panthers the rest of the way. They got another game against Tampa as well, who are only 3 points back, so right on their heels. So it's gonna be an important final 6 weeks for Toronto, and those games against Florida and Tampa are going to be the most important. Can't have any losses and can't have any 3-point nights. Got to pull out regulation victories and all of those to give them the best chance to win the division and avoid that 2-3 matchup in the first round and avoid one of those teams at the very least. All right, Dave. Anything else you want to get into today, or we good there?
I think we're good. I haven't. Chris Tanev. We're still kind of waiting to see where. I like that's another one there where it's like,
yeah, he's not playing tonight, obviously.
yeah,
right. We know that.
Hopefully, I mean, we keep hearing he's improving. Data.
We've heard that a lot this year. Heard that about Yanni Hakanpää. The guy's played 2 games. 2 games, right?
I know.
On day 1 of camp, we were told that Calle Yarncroc tweaked something. He might miss some time. Well, the guy missed how many weeks? How many weeks? Yeah, quite insane. All right, buddy. So we will not see Chris Tanev today, but he is, quote, progressing well. What that means in Leafland, who the hell knows? We'll see him when he gets back out on the ice, but 37% expected goals at 5-on-5 since his absence. They need him back as soon as possible. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. Enjoy tonight's game. Leafs, Panthers. It's a big one. Go Leafs, go. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.